doing something for anywhere like 1 minute to 3 minutes, 3 times a day. Okay. So this is like the quote unquote exercise snacks. This is like, okay, I'm at my desk. I'm working at my computer. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do 1 minute of burpees, or I'm going to get up and I'm going to go sprint down the street and back, or I'm going to do a hill sprint, something that is so short, but intense. And then you just get back into whatever you're doing. So it's not so disruptive. You don't have to have a gym membership. You don't have to go, and get in your car and drive somewhere. You don't have to like think about it and carve out time in your day. You just do it. You just get up from your desk and you do it. So this is 1 minute to 3 minutes, 3 times a day. Have shown that people that do this, again, this is measured by actual data, empirical data, have anywhere between a 30 to 40% lower all-cause mortality and cancer-related mortality. The vigorous intensity is a little bit different than, some people like to go for long runs. They like to go for long bike rides. They're more of that, moderate intensity type of exercise. And that's great too. If that's what you're doing and that's what you love doing, there's tons of studies showing that being, physically active, particularly if you're going on a longer run and you're, engaging in 150 minutes of that normal moderate type of aerobic exercise per week, that you're doing really good, right? So it's not that you have to go and do the vigorous intensity, although I do think there are added benefits on top of that. And those largely have to do with the brain, because when you are when you start to reach, above, when you're getting to the 80%, maximum heart rate, estimated maximum heart rate, and you start to get high, you can't generate energy from the oxygen that you breathe in quick enough. And so your mitochondria, which are the major source of energy generating organelles inside of your cells, they require oxygen to make ATP, which is the energy I'm talking about. So you can't get that oxygen quick enough for the mitochondria to do it. And so you're forced to make energy outside of the mitochondria, and you make it by using up glucose. And so the glucose then gets metabolized into lactate. And lactate is not a waste metabolite like it was widely believed for many years. Like, it's just waste metabolite. It's not only a waste metabolite, it could potentially be harmful because it was thought to be, causing muscle soreness. Complete and utter not true. Nonsense, not true. So lactate actually is a signaling molecule. It has been shown to activate brain-derived neurotrophic factor at the blood-brain barrier. It activates it. It also gets into other tissues, including the brain, through this MCT transporter. And it's used for neurotransmitter synthesis. Norepinephrine uses lactate, serotonin, dopamine. It's used for energy instead of neurons. It's used as a very efficient source of energy. So lactate can be used to make, energy. It's converted, inside the mitochondria and used as energy. And this is in the brain. This is in other tissues as well, like the gut. Lactate's really important for the gut. So I think that there's a role of high intensity interval training or vigorous types of exercise. I say high intensity interval training because it's hard to keep that level of activity up for more than an interval. I mean, it's extremely, you're pushing it all the way and then you taper down, right? So I do think the vigorous type of exercise has a special role in, I think, brain health as well. But also I think cancer prevention is a big one too. I mean, aerobic exercise is very important for cancer prevention. And specifically, I think that there's some interesting mechanisms where the intensity of exercise actually also seems to be important. So there's a circulating tumor cell. So these circulating tumor cells most of the time are when someone has a primary, tumor. So they basically have been diagnosed with cancer. And so at that point, the goal is, okay, well, how do we get rid of the cancer and prevent metastasis, right? We don't want the cancer to spread. Well, these circulating tumor cells escape the primary tumor site, they get into circulation, and then they go elsewhere and then establish camp there, right? So the metastasis process. Well, exercise itself, there's something called shear force. The sheer force of blood flow going through the circulatory system itself kills these circulating tumor cells. And it does it because these tumor cells have these mechanoreceptors on their cell surface. And they're so sensitive to like movement. It's almost like a hurricane. It's like a hurricane just coming through and just wiping it out. And so that there's been studies showing that, the people that have been diagnosed with either colon cancer or breast cancer, when they engage in intense physical activity, aerobic exercise, they are less likely to have their circulating tumor cells drop down. They're less likely to have cancer recurrence. I mean, dramatically in some cases, you're talking like 40%, and they're less likely to die from their cancer. So cancer prevention, but also important role for, cancer recurrence and cancer mortality for people that have already been diagnosed with cancer. I think that the big thing here, there's been a lot of, what type of exercise should I do? I think you should probably just, do what you can, do what you're going to do. Probably good to do both. Like I do a lot of Tabatas. And so I go between my all outs and also like, I'm in like a zone 3, sometimes a zone 2 when I'm sort of tapering it down and like before I'm about to go back all out again. And I do that 10 or 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And then I also like to do resistance training, and that's another, muscle mass and maintaining muscle mass, so important. And, building up that muscle reserve earlier in life, because, you got to build it up. You got to build it up. And once you start to reach a certain age, it becomes very hard to gain muscle mass, although you can still gain strength. And so you have a harder time gaining that mass, but you're losing it. And so it's kind of like the more you start with, the losses aren't quite as big, right? So I think resistance training is very important for that as well. All those things are important. And I think that you have to find something that you can incorporate into your daily routine and that you will do. And, you want your heart rate to get up. You want to sweat. You want to be tired. You want to feel tired afterwards. And I think exercise, whatever way you can do it, where you are at least getting your heart rate up and you are flush in the face and you are when you're working out, you can't talk, right, to some degree. I think that's good. And there's been studies that have looked at, I think exercise can forgive a lot of sins. And I'll say this, during when I was a young, a new mother, my son was a newborn, and all the way up and through the first year, I mean, there was just so much disruption to my sleep and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, like we all know how important sleep is for health, for brain function, for blood pressure, everything, right? But when you're I can only speak as a mother. Like I can't speak for being a father, but I think the father's sleep is also disrupted somewhat too. Mothers, though, they're breastfeeding. You have to feed your baby. There's nothing you can do. And in a way, if you think about all the detrimental effects, it can be very discouraging. You're like, I'm doing terrible things to myself and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor at the time, and my fasting blood glucose levels were just through the roof. And it was crazy. I was eating the same diet, and it wasn't until I got back into I was doing a lot of spin classes back then. And it wasn't until I got on the Peloton or the exercise bike doing high intensity interval training that all of a sudden it normalized my blood glucose levels, even with the interrupted sleep. And then I went into the literature and found, studies showing high intensity interval training can basically ameliorate the negative effects of sleep deprivation on blood glucose regulation. And, so clearly scientific evidence of it. I had anecdotal evidence as well. But there's also was a pretty recent study looking at sleep and all-cause mortality. There's lots of those out there. You'll find, of course, people with disrupted sleep, shorter, much shorter sleep durations have a higher all-cause mortality. However, this recent study also looked at physical activity, and it was interesting because sleep, quality and quantity, again, was associated. So lower quantity was associated with higher all-cause mortality, but only in people that were not physically active. In other words, physical activity forgave the sleep disruption, the poor sleep. I think that if there's a message here, it is that the most important thing that you can do in your life is to sweat and get physically active. Like there's nothing that is going to be better for you. No aging drug, nothing's going to be better than what exercise can do at the moment. And I think that is the main message, that like you just need to be like, if you care about aging, everything from skin aging. Like there was a study showing that people that are physically active are 20 to 50% less likely to have collagen breakdown. And I mean, it was just amazing. Everything, brain health, cardiovascular health, it's the most powerful, I would say, longevity drug you're going to get, in my opinion.